All right, part of the PT test is the hand release push-up. It's only a little different from your regular push-up. It actually adds some challenging elements to it that a lot of people are going to probably have some hiccups on. All right, so I'm going to talk about the starting position, the bottom position, or I guess you could say it's a finish position of sorts, and the transition between the two, all right, in that order. So first of all, the starting position is what you guys are probably all familiar with as the front leaning rest position. Okay, my fingers should be forward here. I should not be fingers out, right? Fingers should be forward to encourage more external rotation or torque as you go into this, okay? So front leaning rest, midline is straight, right? So I'm squeezing my glutes, I'm squeezing my quads. I'm trying to create a straight line from shoulder to feet, okay? You notice my scapula at the top there where my shoulders are is not like this, okay? That's also part of it, okay? It's pushing into the floor a little bit, all right? Now that's mainly the front leaning rest. Now the last thing there, sorry, is the shoulders need to stay over the wrists, okay? So we don't want to be in the front leaning rest back here, right? Nor do we want to be up here because it's a lot of strain on the wrist. We want to be right over the wrists, okay? And you'll notice a vertical forearm, and that's going to become really important when we get to our bottom position. So in the bottom position, we want a vertical forearm, okay? So this is essentially your bottom position. My chest and thighs are on the ground. Watch my feet here, okay? If I go like this and relax, that's another step I have to take before I push myself up. It's going to become harder. Okay, so keep your toes driven into the ground the whole time, just a little bit, all right? And then to get your hand release, your hands physically have to leave the ground. Try not to move your hands out to do this, okay? Try to pull your scapula together, and that's it, right? Just squeeze the back, and that's your hand release portion, okay? When you squeeze your back, really try not to arch excessively because it's gonna lead to more arching later. All right, so now that we've got our hand release, we're back on the ground, all right? We want to, we got our vertical forearm, excuse me. Now we gotta talk about transition. So in the push-up, there's two transitions. There's the lowering phase, otherwise known as a pulling phase, not the pushing phase, right? So I'm pulling myself to the ground, okay? One thing that I always tell people to get the elbows tracking in the right path is to try to twist into the ground so that the crook of their elbow makes an X if they were to draw a line out from it, okay? So if that X is made, if you watch this, right? This is relaxed, this is active, okay? If I activate that shoulder there, my elbows won't have the opportunity to go into the wrong plane of motion, okay? What that means, in other words, is if I go from this relaxed position, see where my elbows are facing now, where my elbow faces is out, right? Now I no longer can maintain that vertical forearm, right? And if I do, I go wider to maintain that vertical forearm and still allow myself to do that. All I'm really doing is taking my humerus and driving it forward in the socket, right? And this is where most problems come from as far as shoulder pain, right? So do not do this, and instead pull that shoulder back as you twist into the floor a little bit, okay? And when you twist, don't let your fingers flare out, okay? This isn't twisting anymore. You no longer created the torque. You have to be pressing and twisting, okay? And that will make the elbows track properly, all right? So really avoid the wide stance on the way down, all right? And remember that you're pulling yourself in the bottom. And one other thing you're doing here is you're shifting momentum forward. So right now my shoulders are over my wrist. As I go down, if I just stay straight and I just try to go straight down, I have to flare out to do it. So I have to lean forward into it as I go down, okay? So remember, there is a little forward momentum to doing a push-up, all right? And then big thing here is when you come up from that bottom position, your chest and thighs are on the ground, you've done your release, you're ready to press back up. You've got to squeeze your quads to start lifting them off the floor, but it'll also help push your feet into the ground. You got to squeeze your glutes to lock in your pelvis so that it's not flaring about, right? And you got to draw the ribs down. So go through the checklist every time you go down there while you're training, right? Are my quads, glutes, and ribs in place? If the answer is yes, you'll push up in a straight line. If the answer is no, I only got my quads and my glutes, but I don't have my rib cage, I'll probably warm up a little bit, all right? And depending on who your grader is, could be a no rep. And if you get too many of those, you're still fatiguing the muscles. So you run a higher risk of failing the test, right? So really make sure that in your training, especially, you're addressing all these positions: ribs, glutes, quads, pulling yourself down, right? Twisting into the ground, all those things. If you have questions, drop them in the comments below, or send us an email.